This episode, I'm back to doing a book review. The first book review I did, of course, was on Bruce Lee, King of Kung Fu. That was the first martial art book I ever received from Charles Durrell, who was my big brother of America. And I still have that book to this day, and I'm very proud that I still have it to this day. The next book I'm going to review is, and I'm not doing these reviews like this is a chronological order, what are the most important books to me. Even though that Bruce Lee King of Kung Fu is probably the most important because it's what got me started into this fascination with martial arts and martial art books because of Bruce Lee. But this book, I'm just kind of randomly going through the ones I just feel important, that something about them have drawn me to them. And so that's why I'm picking and selecting these books to discuss. The one I want to discuss this time is actually Karate, Technique and Spirit by Tadashi Nakamura. Tadashi Nakamura is the founder of Seido Karate, and he was a Kyokushin karate artist who Masuyama sent to the United States, and he set up his dojo in New York, and then would separate and develop Seido Karate. So I'd like to go over why this book is so unique to me and why I love it, and just share some things in it with you. So the first time I encountered this book, actually, I was stationed at Clark Air Base, Republic of the Philippines, and Soki Bobby Briggs and I had a karate school on the base. And it's kind of unique. I went to the Philippines. It was on my dream sheet, it's like we call it the military dream sheet, trying to get somewhere. And I put a lot of Asian bases because I wanted to go to Asia and study karate in the Far East. Often you have a romanticized version of it. And when I arrived there, I went and looked at a few martial arts schools, and I was really disappointed because right off the bat, what I found out is that on the base or immediately off the base in Angeles City, that they were really trying to cater to Americans, and the teaching necessarily wasn't always very good. And then on base, if you looked real closely, you could find that there were good instructors, but interestingly enough, they were Americans. And I really kind of given up hope, though. I didn't find what I wanted, and then I would encounter Bobby Briggs. I was, at the time, Buck Sergeant in the United States Air Force. I would make Staff Sergeant when I was there. He was also a Buck Sergeant, and we were both cops. We ran into each other because of an investigation that he was conducting, and lo and behold, organically, we found out we both love karate. And he was already teaching on the base, running a dojo of the Girl Scouts of America on the base. So he invited me, and the rest is history. We had a student named Rob, and Rob was PCSing out, and he was just one of these really neat guys. And he had been with us maybe at this time, probably 12 months. And we wanted to do something really nice to him and throw a party. So we decided to throw him a party. And this book at the Stars and Stripes was actually pretty expensive for the time period. I think it was $29.95 or $35. And back then, as a young Buck Sergeant, Staff Sergeant, it was pretty expensive. And they only had one, and we decided we better buy it and give it to him as a gift. And then someday we would wish we can counter it and buy it. So we bought the book. Bobby asked if I'd write the message in there, so I wrote a message from the school, the dojo, for him in here, and we gave it to him as one of our gifts. This book came with a really nice dust jacket. It's now missing. But I was finally able to purchase this book in Hawaii when I was stationed there in 1996. I was in a Barnes & Noble, and Walla discovered it. This is before we had the internet, and you could just order a book and it'd be at your house in 2 days. Back then, if you wanted to order a book, it could take 4 to 6 weeks to arrive. And so usually I would be more on the impulsive side and buy books I could get to. When I was stationed at Edwards Air Force Base, after the Philippines, I would increase my collection of martial art books, but I would go down into Los Angeles and used bookstores or martial art bookstores or even new bookstores and buy ones that were available. And I'd ask about this book, and to order it would be 4 or 6 weeks. And I thought, well, I can spend that much money now or get this other book for $16 and increase my collection. So I would finally encounter this book when I was stationed at Bellows Air Force Station in Hawaii, and I was at a Barnes & Noble, and I thought, boy, it's expensive. As a young staff sergeant, Hawaii is expensive, but I wanted it, so if that means I have to get Coca-Cola for the week or longer, then I'm going to do it and get this book. And what drew me to this book? Well, let me explain. One, it feels good, but it has really three things. It's a primer. It's going to go over basic techniques. Well, I didn't need that at that time. I had a black belt in 2 karate styles by then. But I love the pictures, and they just kind of brought my imagination into it. But secondly, it's the glossy photos are just great. And for some reason, it piques my imagination. And when I would look at the black and whites or the color photos, I felt like I was there. I still do when I look at it. I feel like I'm there training with these people. And I'll go over some of these pictures, or I'm there in the woods practicing karate. It took me away. And then I liked, it's got a lot of narrative in it for a primer. Most primers don't have a lot of narrative. They have a little bit of writing, and it gets right to the how to do this. And this one has a little more than your average primer. But it's still simple. It's not overly attenuated with it to where it's heavy reading. And sometimes Occam's razor, this idea that the simplest explanation is the best, or sometimes, as people will say, less is more, is perfect. And this book does that perfectly. So I'm just going to highlight a couple things that I think are really interesting about this book. I was very fortunate when I bought it. It was a first edition. Soon after this, it basically became, you got the paperback version. I bought that for many people, but it's not quite the same as having this hardback version and the glossy paper and photos. It just isn't the same. But I want to go over a couple things in here. One of these dojo hall pictures, they just really, of opening a class in the dojo and that karate is a way of life, it just bring you in. This idea, the 4 seasons, you can see this picture here. Actually, what I'll do is I'll just get these pictures and put them up while I'm talking and show them to you. It's just outstanding. And I do want to read this. He changed the name to Seido Karate that he founded. And I just want to read it real quick. Sei has several meanings. It can mean calm or silent. Modern life emphasizes endless activity. The constant pressure to be doing something creates fatigue and stress. Calm, silent periods of active inactivity help to create a harmony in our lives. Meditation puts our activity into proper perspective and helps us to make it more enriched. And then Do. Although Do can mean way, it also conveys the idea of activity and energy. Karate practice is full of energetic, active movements. So too are our daily lives. Calm periods of meditation help to make our activity more focused and more meaningful. Calmness and energetic activity must be balanced and in harmony. To emphasize either one or the other is not correct. In Seido, we strive to find the right individual balance. And, this book came out in late 80s, early 90s. When I got this book in 1996, and I thought, boy, life was really rushed then. How much more so now in this whole digital age. And we have a 24-hour news cycle, not just with one channel, CNN, but we've got several channels. Fox News, CNN, MSNBC, Newsmax, and it goes on and on and on. Our phones are always alerting us to the next thing, and the consumerism of this world. And I'm a free market guy, but it wants us to go buy, 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 do. And we very rarely just take time to just take life in, take the things that are important, the things we can take with us, like our relationships. I have another channel. It's a motorcycle channel. It's a real passion of mine. And what I find there is my balance. It's part machine and part nature. And taking that time to go ahead and go somewhere where I am alone and away from the world. This idea of always scrolling on our phones. You see people doing that, and they're just looking. And it's different if you're on your computer phone, you're doing some actual research or gaining of knowledge that you want to apply or write a book or teach or find something that's going to edify you. But that's not what's going on. What's happening, and the social scientists have written about this, is that people scroll their devices, always inquiring on the next thing. And in doing so, they end up wasting hours of their life never really finding that thing because of this hyperactive activity of scrolling on something, but they're not really doing anything. And then they've lost all that time to not meditate or not take it in. And I mean meditation in a broad sense. Or they're not doing something and accomplishing something. And so I find that there's less calmness in today's society, even though we have more gyms, more karate studios, more, I'm not into yoga studios, abundance of churches and synagogues, and yet we find people's minds and bodies are hurrying to the next thing. And karate can discipline you. You work out, you exercise, you achieve something, you reflect on it, and nothing is more meditative than having a great workout. So like tonight, I weightlifted. I had a really great workout, did some bag work, and then I went walked the dog, and I was just exhausted afterwards. And it was nice just to take a few minutes and just take that all in. Again, some of these pictures are just great. The calligraphy is outstanding. He does go through the developments of karate in Okinawa into Japan. In Okinawa, karate was more of learning to fight. In Japan became a form of character development. But still, Seido is a full contact activity, so still learning to fight. I like that he takes time to go through the ethical and moral values of karate. Of course, being Japanese, he focuses on the samurai, the seven Bushido codes, and I think that's a very good place to start. Those virtues of Gi, Yu, Jin, Rei, Makoto, and Chugo. Rectitude, heroism, universal love, compassion, courtesy, truthfulness, and devotional loyalty. And when these things are done correctly, you have a good citizen, a good person. And I think that's what he's trying to get across in this book. And so this book just always kind of called me. I also like this. I want to read this for you. This is on page 34. A true karateka takes the physical skills, discipline, and power of concentration developed at the dojo and applies them to work, family, and social life. In this way, karate is integrated into the fabric of our lives. It is not something separate. The way of karate is the way of everyday life. And he has pictures, and he highlights 3 students here when he does this. And he highlights their training in the dojo. He discusses more about the application of modern living, everything from physical conditioning to self-defense, and then the discipline and concentration that karate brings. He gets in, of course, breathing methods, general principles, and then it is a basics of karate technique. So after he gets through etiquette and diet and exercise, he gets through the normal calisthenics. And then just the glossy photos here and how he opens up each chapter. As a primer, I can still look at this and go like, wow, it's just beautifully done. The pictures, the way it's photographed and framed and put in here, it's just gorgeous looking. He gets into breaking and kata, and there's a picture of them in the snow training, and it just is a beautiful black and white photo that just for me draws me into it and almost makes me feel like I was there. Of course, for many young people, this is before the day we had DVDs and 65-inch TVs. That brought us into everything. He talks about the relationship between kata and the kumite, and I'll be candid, kata is not my favorite thing, and nor am I the best at it. Bobby once said, from the shoulders down, you look greatest. Head up, you don't when it comes to kata. And I think it says kata takes so much more work to me than fighting did. Techniques and fighting and drilling was natural for me. And so kata is where I really had to work hard. And I had an injury where I was not allowed to kick for 6 months, and then was not allowed to kick up and above the knee area for about another 4 months after that. So I went through almost a year where I wasn't really allowed to kick due to a groin pull. And most katas don't have kicks. And so that was one of the few times I could keep that warrior spirit by practicing kata, but I had been so poor in really training in my kata, then I had to really kind of train all over again in it. And this book tries to bring out that importance, but in a simple way. It's not overly detailed. I do like the end. I want to go through that real quick. He gets into Kumite, but the karate meditation lectures. And I found this chapter when I read it at the Barnes Noble, when I bought it, and when I had read it when I was writing those things for Rob, because I read it then, and I just kind of liked it. What he does is that he has a heading in Japanese, it's phonetic in English, and then in parentheses, the definition of what it's trying to say. So, Oya no on, be thankful to your parents. Kenjo no bitaku, with true strength comes humility. Oshi shinobu os, be patient with yourself and with others. And he goes through a whole bunch of these. Ko gakun shin, keep your mind open to learn. There's just a lot of them. My Japanese is very poor, so please forgive me. But he just has them, and he has some pictures off to the side sometimes that are just great. And he kind of goes through what he's trying to say, what he thinks this means for us. So I always found this just really insightful and important for us. Gaso, be grateful for each moment. And I think as people, we should be grateful for each moment and really take each moment in. And as karatekas and as human beings, appreciate what we have in life, especially us in the developed world, the Western world, and the developed Eastern world. We are so blessed with what we have. It's why I have problems with, I'll be candid, the woke world. A whole bunch of victimization when there's true victims in the world, and not much of appreciation for the wonderful circumstances they're in. Life is tough for all of us, don't get me wrong, but we have so many more opportunities and so many more people throughout history and even right now. And I think this book and that part, just that little saying there, can remind us of that. So in any case, I hope you like this review. I'm not a professional reviewer. And I've talked books many times to people, but it's usually more organic. This is not so organic. I've had to kind of figure out how to do this, and this is about the third time I'm trying. But if you get a chance to get this in the hardbound, please do. Even if you can get it in the paperback version, it's still a great book to have to your martial arts library. But there's some of the hardbound, and you know what? I've had this 28 years, and it still smells great. Thank you very much, and have a spectacular week. Os.